Alrighty, we are going on to STAAR review number 2. Learning goal. I can represent proportional situations using a table, graph, and an equation. And I can find X and Y values in problems about direct variation. So we've got 2 goals, learning goals today. We're on proportions and direct variation. I want to take you back to your mathematics chart. And I hope you know what was the first thing we taught you to write on this form. I want you to write it because I left a mathematics chart out for you today. I want you to write on this form, and you are going to staple this to your packet and turn it in. So what is the first thing you're going to write on your reference material when you get it? Please do so now. I sure hope you put N, P, and P for non-proportional and proportional, okay? And as we go through, I'm going to be leaving a mathematics chart out every day, and I'm going to be expecting you to fill it out. And the deeper we go in, the more information there's going to be to fill out. The other thing I want you to always do is circle slope, because that's the formula you need to find for slope of a line. Okay? For some reason, we struggle with remembering that formula. We want to put our X's over our Y's. Enough about that. So today, we're talking about proportional relationships, which means there's only multiplication in this situation. Let's go to our notes. Proportional situations can be represented by tables, graphs, equations, and word problems. Okay? All those things are fair game for proportional relationships. Proportional graphs. Let's talk about what the graphs will look like. They will always be linear. What does that word mean? What does linear mean? Straight. In other words, there will be a straight line. We don't have curvy lines except for when we're looking at functions in 8th grade math, okay? We only have straight linear lines. When you get to algebra, you're going to get used to looking at curvy lines, okay? Proportional graphs will always include the origin. For the most part, most of the time the graph will only be in the first quadrant. In other words, this is a first quadrant graph. Your origin is right here, and that line will be included to be a proportional graph, okay? And because all they've done is they've taken a 4-quadrant graph. Here's your 4 quadrants. And they've cut off the other 3 quadrants and left you with the first quadrant. Okay? So, here's your quadrants, your y-axis, your x-axis. The origin is right there at 0, 0. Okay? So, proportional equations. The form is in y equals mx. In other words, only multiplication. You're only multiplying your slope times your variable. Okay? Remember that m is your slope and x represents your variable. Okay? And you only have multiplication. Y is the total. So whatever m times x, it equals whatever they're representing by y. Okay? M is the slope, rate of change. Unit rate, we've talked about those things many times yesterday, okay? There is only multiplication. Again, only multiplication. If you have something where it says y equals mx plus or minus b, that is not proportional, okay? So that would not be a proportional relationship. Proportional word problems will only include multiplication. Words that are for multiplication. Per, every, each, okay? It will never have addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction words are also, and, less, more. Okay, it's always your plus. They use even the word plus, okay? So only multiplication. And when they're giving you 4-word problems, they'll usually be sentences. and they'll say which situation is proportional. 3 of them will have one of these words in it, and 1 of them will not, and it's the one that does not, the one that only multiplies, okay? All right, so that would be your proportional word problem. Direct variation problems, this is the other topic that we're going to talk about today. Example, 40 miles in 5.5 hours, how many miles in 8 hours? First, identify the parts. You need to give yourself some sort of M over H. I'm all about being lazy, but at least identify it somehow. Set up the proportion, an equation stating that 2 ratios are equal. So I have a ratio here and a ratio here. Cross multiply, which is butterfly from 7th grade or 6th grade. I don't know, but it's cross multiply. Okay? And solve for the missing part. Sometimes the missing part is X, sometimes the missing part is Y, sometimes the missing part is M or H, whichever you use. So I had 40 miles in 5.5 hours. How many miles, so I put an X there, you could put an M, in 8 hours. Now sometimes they'll do 40 miles in 5.5 hours. How many, in 8 hours, how many miles? Just to kind of get you to mess up. And if you haven't identified your parts, you'll put them in the wrong place and get the wrong answer. The rest is simple. Cross multiply. So I did my little circles of cross multiplying. Okay. I tend to do a little bit different, but that's fine. 5.5 times X is 5.5X. 40 times 8 is 320. Okay, now I'm going to show you what happens here. I need to get X by itself. I need to know how much is 1X, okay, or 1 mile. All right, so what happens is you take 5.5X is equal to 320. You divide this side by 5.5. You divide this side by 5.5. This 5.5 divided by 5.5 gives you 1. And 320 divided by 5.5 is 58.18. And that would be your answer. Okay? All right, we're going to do a few problems on the work today. I'm going to teach you a couple of new strategies or things to remind you that you have in your toolbox that sometimes we forget. Okay? Okay, number 1. So go get your paper. Number 1. I hope you paused me, okay? Number 1, at a carnival booth. Remember, we are trying to do a proportional equation, okay? I don't see any pluses or minuses in here. So we're looking for that y equals kx or mx. It doesn't matter. K is your constant of proportionality, so that's the same thing as your slope, okay? So, here we go. At a carnival booth, Cindy spent 6 minutes on each, that means to multiply. The word each means to multiply, face. So so if I put a dot here and my X here, I know that that's 6 times X. She painted. Okay, I'm sorry. You can't see my paper. Which equation best represents the linear relationship between X, the number of faces that Cindy painted, and Y, the total? So Y is representing the total. So remember, we got Y equals, and all we have is 6 times X, which can be represented when you have a number next to a variable. It means to multiply. So now you're going to look at your answer choices. Write it down first. Don't try and do it inside here. Because, yeah, this one is pretty simple, but they're not always that way, okay? Write it down. So which one matches y equals 6x? Yeah, it's A. You're correct. You will never, in 8th grade math, have x equals 6y with a variable over here. You might have x equals 6 if you're solving an equation for x, but you will never have this kind of a situation in 8th grade math where it's an x equals. So you can always mark those out. Okay? I don't know what the heck that is. And we know that one doesn't work. Okay? Let's go to number 3. Okay? The graph below shows the linear relationship between x, the number of minutes a snail crawls, and y, the total distance the snail crawls. When we've got a graph, the first thing I always say, first off, you need to look at what you're talking about on the sides of your graph. So I've got total distance in inches. These seem to be going up by 5s, okay? And I've got time in minutes, okay? And these seem to be going over by 1s. So I've got 5s and 1s. Now, on a graph, how you find your slope is what? Rise over run, okay? If it goes to the origin, use the origin, okay, as your starting point. Then I have to find another place that it's, oh, well, it crosses right here, so that makes it really easy, okay? I go up, but it's not up 1, rise of 5, and over 1, okay? I could have used that. I could have used rise of 10 and gone over to 2. So that would have been 10 over 2, and that would simplify to 5 over 1, okay? That's my slope, and I'm filling in y equals mx, m being my slope, okay? So, pretty easy. I know you can see it. It's not an x equals. We said we're not using that one. This is negative x divided by 5. This has a plus sign, so we know it can't be that. There it is, b. That's simple. Now, let's say I wasn't sure. Okay, maybe it was more complicated than what this one looks like, okay? I'm going to show you another little trick you could do. Okay, you can't use your x. You know it's not that. So what if I was to put in 5x, okay? And then I was to hit that table, second table. I could go here. Well, I do have 0 and 0 because these are my y's and these are my x's. When x is 1... y is 5. The line is crossing where x is 1 and y is 5. When x is 2, y is 10. That's true too. So I could find it using the table function on my calculator. Okay? It works great. All right, let's look at number 4. Now I have a table. Remember, you're trying to fill in y equals mx. Well, I can come down here and knock out b, and I can knock out d, so I've only got 2 choices, okay? Hours worked, money earned. X's are always on the left. Remember when we were looking at slope? Y's. Do you remember the formula to find slope from a table? How many of you remember? It's on your formula chart. We used it yesterday. Yeah, that one. That one where you pick 2, and you do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Or you can just do y's over x's. I'm okay with that, with just this, and this. 1, 2, 1, 2. So I've got my y's go on top. I got 120, subtract 60, over 10, subtract 5. Okay, and I can do in my calculator 120 subtract 60, and I get 60. And then I do 10 subtract 5, and I get 5. And simplify that, 60 divided by 5, and I get, 60 divided by 5, and I get 12. So my slope is 12, so that would go in there, right? So y equals 12x would be my answer, so it would be C. Now, another way, let's say I've forgotten how to do this, okay? So, there again, I can go to y equals. I had 2 answer choices. Let's put the first one in at 36x. Let's put the second one in at 12x. I want a table. I don't want a graph. I want second and table. Okay, my first one. When x is 3, my y value is 108. Well, that doesn't work because it says 36 here, and that was the first one I put in. As long as I put them in the order that they are here, And they're not going to have any X, Y's, and X's. I'm telling you, you're going to have 4 answer choices, so you might do these separately, one at a time, to find your answer, okay? It's pretty easy when there's only 2, but when you get 4 in there, it can get confusing as to which ones. I always put them in the order that they are here, okay? So, but it makes it pretty simple to know that when X is 3, okay, Y is 36, when X, I need to go down to where X is 5, Y is 60. I can go down to where X is, you can arrow down to where X is 12, Y is 144. Okay, and I could find out that C is my answer choice. Okay. We are going to do, I believe, one more problem. And then I'm going to let you, which I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 of these today. Okay, I want you to go to number 14. We're going to do one more of these, okay? The distance a bird flies directly with the time it flies. So what 2 things are we comparing? How far, the distance, so I'm just going to put it as D, varies with the time over T, okay? Distance and time, and I could name it miles and hours, I could name it whatever works for you as long as you understand what it means. And it says, one morning a bird flew 34 miles. That's a distance. So I could put an M here. In 2 hours, I could put an H here, in 2 hours. Later that day, the bird flew at the same speed for 5 hours. So where would that 5 go? Because most of you would want to put it up here, wouldn't you? Okay? No, it's hours, so it goes down here. And this is how they flip them on you and get you to get the wrong answer. So I need to solve for miles. Okay? What was the distance in miles the blue bird flew in these 7 hours? Oh my goodness. Now look at that. I didn't even need 5. I needed to put 7 here, okay, because it's a total of 7 hours. So I'm going to cross that out and write 7, okay? Then I'm going to cross multiply, and I'm going to let you solve it. You need to solve for how many miles the bird flew altogether in 7 hours, okay? All righty, and this is due at the end of class, and have a great day.